It gladdens my heart to come and rub minds with the Prince of Nigeria. On behalf of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I wish to warmly welcome each and every one of you to this event. This event is about selling Nigeria. It is also about selling Africa. And Nigeria has never pretended that there is an alternative to building a structure that guarantees partnerships. There is no substitute for a framework that coordinates the exchange of ideas, capital, and technology. For only such a structure redeems the welfare of our people. In this interconnected age, the wealth of any nation is not achieved through miracle. Neither is it inherited. It is engineered, and it is born of deliberate collaborations that turn risk into reforms and reforms into returns. Here in our midst is the Minister of Investment of the UAE, one of the fastest growing economies in Asia. It wasn't a miracle. It was deliberate efforts that turned a desolate desert into a mecca for tourism. Honorable Minister, well done for doing an authentic job. Nigeria offers a vista of opportunities. Beyond being the largest economy in West Africa, we are the largest consumer market in Africa with 236 million people and growing. And by 2050, we will be the third most populous nation on earth. We are going to surpass the United States. And the beauty of the Nigerian nation is that our median age is 16.9, with 58% of our population below the age of 30. So the anticipated demographic bulge, we can turn them into demographic dividends, not the much peer demographic disaster that will consume all of us, no. I always cite the study meant by comparing a global consultancy firm that said that by 2035, there will be 65 million global talent deficits. The United States, Russia, and Brazil will each suffer from 6 million talent deficits. And Nigeria is in a unique position to tap into these potentials. There are more English-speaking people in Nigeria than in India. And last year, India generated over $100 billion from BPO alone. And what was the highest we have ever earned from the process of oil? The highest Nigeria has ever earned from the process of oil was $25 billion under President Jonathan in 2011. So Nigeria provides hope. It provides a vista of opportunities. Our proximity to Europe is an advantage. And our English, I was born, bred, buttered, and trusted right in the heart of Maiduguri in northeastern Nigeria. I was educated in Nigeria, but I believe my English. Mr. John, I think you can get to hear when I'm talking. So I ask you, in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you have a friend, you have an ally who speaks your language, the language of commerce, who understands the dynamics of modern business, who was educated here in the United States. And he's a man of courage and conviction. Hitherto, previous governments were just pushing the ball down the corridor. Nobody was willing to bite the bullet. Nobody was willing to take risk. In our first day in office, he took the greatest gamble that any Nigerian leader had ever taken in the past 50 years. It wasn't part of his speech. It was at the inauguration ceremony that he announced the withdrawal of fuel subsidy. And we know the consequences of unveiling a masquerade. The fuel subsidies scam industry in Nigeria is a very humongous industry with very huge watches. But he said, let me take the bullet from day one. The collapse of the multiple exchange rate regime that provided room for a lot of shady practices, so that you don't even need to go and engage in any productive activity like the flour mills of Nigeria are doing. No. All you need to do is to get to know the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and within 3 months you will be a billionaire. Fundamentally, it's for you to get the Forex as the official exchange rate, do the round tripping, and smile your way to the banks on the agonies of the people. But now, the collapse of the multiple exchange rate regime has revitalized the Nigerian economy. And let me tell you a short story, the story of an oil palm called Presco. 2 years ago, Presco's share was hovering in the neighborhood of 300, 400 naira per share. Now, because all the Nestles, the Cadburys, all the confectionaries, the Indomie makers have resorted to procuring their oil palm products locally, the share of Presco has grown by 247% in the past 12 months. And Presco, their first quarter profit for this year was 58 billion naira. That goes to show the vitality of the reforms, the tax reform, and most importantly, the billion-dollar investments in infrastructure. It's rubbing on well, and I'm inviting you to come and have a piece of the action. Most of our ministers speak the language of their areas of core competence. There's a young man seated here. I'm calling him a young man in spite of the fact that some are also seeing me as a young. I'm forcing myself to be young, just like the Minister of Industry. His name is Bosun Tijani. He was an acerbic critic of our ticket. But the president had the courage and conviction. He was shopping for the best, and he happened to be one of the best. He is now making waves in our communications subsector. It's always good to get the mix right. When a fish starts getting rotten, it starts from the head. If you put an incompetent imbecile into a very strategic ministry, it's a recipe for disaster. So with all humility, our cabinet, the cabinet of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is one of the most competent cabinets in the West African and the African region. I want to thank you most sincerely from the bottom of my heart on behalf of my boss, who ought to be here. I have a prepared speech, but I said, no, let me speak from the heart. Because sometimes when you speak from the heart, it conveys greater meaning and depth than reading a sterile prepared speech. So I want to thank you. I want you to continue believing in Nigeria, because the trajectory of global growth is facing Africa, and Nigeria will make or mar that transition. 1 out of every 4 black men is a Nigerian. And by 2050, 1 out of every 3 black men will be a Nigerian. And by the end of the century, 1 out of every 2 black men will be a Nigerian. Of the 10 unicorns in Africa, about 8 are in Nigeria. Name some of them for me: Andela, Plutaweb, Money Point, Jumia, Ope. That's where the action is. Why do you have to go and waste your resources? Come to Nigeria. Our doors are open for business. We are ready for action. And I want to thank the likes of John Komantoros, who believed in Nigeria, who invested in Nigeria in our darkest hours. We celebrate you, sir. We adore you. We respect you. We value and cherish that relationship. He's a second-generation Nigerian American. Thank you so much, and I wish all of us well. Thank you.
It's a day that's going to be full of different activities. And this particular segment, it's my pleasure to just speak a bit to why we're here. This discussion is guided by the theme, Risk, Reform, and Return. And today's gathering is designed to move beyond announcements into bankable partnerships. And the theme signals that Nigeria is not only rewriting the risk equation with bold reforms, but is also offering predictable returns and genuine partnership opportunities. So just to mention Nigeria's fundamentals, Nigeria is West Africa's largest economy and a consumer market of 230 million people today, projected to be 320 million by 2040. We were having a discussion on numbers just before we started this, with a median age of 18 and over 58% under 30 years old. So this gives Nigeria one of the deepest talent pools globally. And we're also a natural hub for trade between Africa, the Americas, Asia, with 44 distinct natural resources. 5 of the 9 tech unicorns are of Nigerian extraction. We have the largest oil reserves in Africa and 210 trillion cubic feet of proven gas reserves. Now, these fundamentals are not just numbers. They are the foundation on which our reforms sit and the reasons that the reforms matter. Since mid-2023, under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's Renewed Hope agenda, Nigeria has embarked on one of the boldest economic resets in its history. We unified our exchange rates, we removed fuel subsidies, modernized our tax and customs regimes, and strengthened fiscal oversights. We overhauled our trade and investment policies, and these include a full AfCFTA implementation, that's the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, a national single window project for trade facilitation, a new Investment and Securities Act, an upgraded PPP framework, and modernized bilateral investment treaties. Now, the impact is already visible. GDP growth is accelerating, external reserves are strengthening, inflation is moderating, and investors' commitments are rebounding. In April, Fitch upgraded Nigeria's sovereign ratings to B, which is stable, and Moody's lifted its issuer ratings to B3, stable also. Now, citing improved buffers and clear policy direction, which is important. Since then, these reforms began. There's been over about 50 billion in investment interest and announcements that have been tracked across key sectors. Now, this is not reform for reform's sake. It is a disciplined effort to create a transparent, rules-based, investor-friendly market, one that crowds in capital at scale, unlocks productivity, and positions Nigeria as the natural hub for the AfCFTA's $3.4 trillion market. Building on this momentum, Nigeria has introduced a new tax act to modernize and streamline our fiscal regime. But tax is just one part of a much larger picture. We have built a 4-pillar incentive framework designed to reduce investor risk, accelerate cash returns, and make Nigeria one of the most competitive destinations for capital in the global south. A simpler, predictable tax regime with clear capital allowances, R&D reductions, and export-linked rebates. Investors in priority sectors can now achieve faster break-even through 5% annual tax credits on qualifying capital expenditure, and we have the FIRS here represented with us. Special economic zones and export incentives, duty-free imports, rent concessions, rebates on non-oil export proceeds, and integrated logistics platforms that unlock working capital for exporters. Third, cross-border protections, updated bilateral investment treaties, investor promotion and protection agreements, structured repatriation pathways, and streamlined FX access, giving investors confidence that their capital and profits are protected. Fourth, financing and liquidity tools, sovereign and FDI co-financing, dedicated sector windows for creative, tech, agribusiness, and green manufacturing, and credit guarantee streams to lower borrowing costs and catalyze private lending. Together, these pillars show Nigeria is not just open for business. We have engineered the scaffolding for long-term capital to thrive. This is where reforms meet bankability and where policy certainty becomes predictable returns. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is leading Nigeria's economic transformation with a renewed Hope 8-point agenda, which prioritizes food sovereignty, energy sufficiency, infrastructure renewal, industrialization, job creation, inclusivity, and improved access to capital. And what you see here is not just a random list, but a national roadmap. Each priority is backed by a bankable pipeline. Now, for priority sectors, agriculture and food security, Nigeria has 71 million hectares of arable land, yet only 46% is cultivated. Our special agro-industrial zones are reducing post-harvest losses by up to 40% and linking farmers directly to processing and export hubs. This turns Nigeria from a fragmented producer into a continent-scale food system, serving 400 million consumers across West Africa. For energy sufficiency, with 210 trillion cubic feet of glass reserves and one of the highest solar radiation levels in Africa, Nigeria offers a 200 billion B+ energy transition opportunity. Fiscal incentives and VAT waivers are de-risking investment in both traditional and renewable power assets, from gas-fired IPPs to off-grid solar and clean hydrogen pilots. For infrastructure renewal, Nigeria faces a $1 billion annual gap in transport, ports, and power infrastructure. Through InfraCore and NSIA, we are blending sovereign and private finance to fund metro lines, dry ports, and industrial corridors, building the backbone of West African trade and creating long-term revenue streams for investors. Industrialization and job creation. SEZ clusters host over $5 billion in installed industrial capacity, with backward integration incentives and AFCFTA corridors opening a 450 billion continental market. These reforms are transforming Nigeria into Africa's production floor and innovation hub. So for natural resources, and the Honorable Minister will speak about the critical minerals shortly, we have $700 billion worth of beneficiation and security regime. And digital economy and access to capital, we also have the Honorable Minister who will speak to that shortly. But I'm aware that His Excellency the Vice President has another event at 1 o'clock, and we asked him just for an hour. So I think that we'll pause at this point and let him make his comments. Then we'll come back into spotlight sectoring on two particular sectors, solid minerals and telecommunications and innovation and digital economy. Your Excellency, it's my singular honor to invite you to make your comments.
Standing until the Vice President receives his seat and takes his seat. Please, if we could continue to remain standing until the Vice President sits down. You're welcome, His Excellency, Senator Shettima.